Joan Crawford, a name synonymous with Hollywood glamour and drama, lived a life as tumultuous as it was iconic. Beneath the glitz and red carpet elegance was a story filled with tragedy, resilience, and relentless ambition. From humble beginnings as Lucille Fay LeSueur in San Antonio, Texas, Crawford's journey to becoming one of the most electrifying actresses of her time was anything but a fairy tale. Born into a struggling family, young Lucille's early years were defined by hardship. Her father, Thomas LeSueur, abandoned the family when she was just 10 months old, leaving her mother, Anna, to pick up the pieces. Anna later remarried Henry J. Casson, an opera house manager whose profession introduced young Lucille to the world of performance, exposing her to stars like legendary ballerina Anna Pavlova. Casson, whom Crawford believed to be her biological father for many years, became a source of profound trauma. When she was only 11 years old, he began mistreating her, an experience that would leave scars she carried throughout her life. Crawford rarely spoke about this period, but the pain of those early years fueled her determination to escape and build a life on her own terms. Desperate for a sense of freedom, Crawford sought solace in her first romance. While attending Rockingham Academy, she began a relationship with Ray Sterling, a trumpet player who encouraged her to pursue her academic goals. By all accounts, Sterling was a positive influence, a rarity in her turbulent young life. However, the relationship ultimately fizzled as Crawford's focus shifted from academics to a much grander dream, stardom. In 1922, at the age of 18, Crawford made a bold decision that would alter the course of her life. She dropped out of college, leaving behind Ray Sterling and her academic pursuits to pursue a career in show business. With a fierce determination and a natural talent for dance, she began performing in chorus lines across America, captivating audiences with her energy and charisma. It wasn't long before Hollywood took notice and she started landing small roles in films. Hollywood, with all its glittering promise, wasn't exactly welcoming to the young Lucille Fay LeSueur. Her name, a remnant of her modest beginnings, became a target of ridicule when MGM executives felt it sounded too much like a sewer. Pete Smith, an MGM publicity executive, made it his mission to rebrand the budding actress. What he came up with would forever alter her destiny. Smith launched a Name the Star contest in a local paper, inviting readers to choose a stage name for the aspiring actress. The winning name? Not Joan Crawford. The public initially selected Joan Arden, but the studio quickly discovered that another actress already used the name. Forced to go with their second choice, they landed on Crawford, a name the actress would come to loathe. To her, Crawford sounded like crawfish, and she often lamented the lack of grace in her moniker. Despite her feelings, the name stuck, becoming synonymous with old Hollywood glamour and ferocious determination. Crawford's early days in Hollywood weren't glamorous. Her first credited role came in the 1925 film Lady of the Night, but it was hardly a breakthrough. She served as a body double for MGM's reigning queen, Norma Shearer, one of the studio's most celebrated actresses. While Crawford might have been grateful for the opportunity, standing in the shadow of Shearer was no easy task for someone as fiercely ambitious as Joan. The experience was humbling and humiliating, but Joan Crawford wasn't one to remain in the background for long. She quickly set her sights on Shearer, viewing her as both a professional rival and a symbol of everything she wanted to surpass. Shearer's privileged position as the wife of MGM studio head Irving Thalberg only added fuel to Crawford's fire. As Joan once quipped with razor-sharp wit, "How can I compete with Norma? She sleeps with the boss." Hollywood's golden age was rife with whispers of backroom deals and casting couch politics, and Crawford's name was often front and center in these rumors. According to industry gossip, she didn't shy away from using every tool in her arsenal to land roles, even seduction. One of her alleged conquests was the married director Vincent Sherman, who later described Crawford as having a masculine approach to their intimate encounters. Even Sherman's wife seemed resigned to Crawford's allure, famously remarking, "I guess it's too much to ask of any man that he turned down the opportunity to sleep with Joan Crawford." But Crawford's hunger for fame extended beyond personal relationships. Frustrated with how MGM was marketing her, she took matters into her own hands, embarking on a self-promotion campaign that would put modern PR strategies to shame. She frequented dance competitions across Hollywood, dazzling crowds and ensuring her name remained on everyone's lips. Her unyielding determination didn't go unnoticed. As one screenwriter aptly put it, Joan Crawford became a star because Joan Crawford decided to become a star. Her tireless efforts paid off in 1928 when she landed her breakout role in Our Dancing Daughters. Portraying a vivacious flapper, Crawford exuded a raw energy and charm that captivated audiences. The film catapulted her into stardom, positioning her as the next it girl, following in the footsteps of Clara Bow, Hollywood's reigning queen of the silent era. With her bold performance, Crawford proved she wasn't just another pretty face. She was a force to be reckoned with. Joan Crawford's first serious Hollywood relationship wasn't just a romance. It was a headline-grabbing scandal that set the tone for her dramatic personal life. In 1929, she met and quickly married Douglas Fairbanks Jr., the young heir to Hollywood royalty. At just 19 years old, Fairbanks was the son of screen legends Douglas Fairbanks Sr. and Mary Pickford, often referred to as Hollywood's original power couple. Crawford, then in her early 20s, was already making waves as a rising star, but her relationship with Fairbanks Jr. thrust her further into the limelight and controversy. Their whirlwind romance turned heads not only because of the age difference, but also because of the stark contrast between their backgrounds. Fairbanks was Hollywood aristocracy, born into privilege and groomed for greatness, while Crawford was the epitome of a self-made woman clawing her way up from poverty. Their union was a match that fascinated the public and horrified Fairbanks' family. Mary Pickford, in particular, made no effort to hide her disdain for Crawford. As the matriarch of the Fairbanks dynasty, Pickford saw Joan as an interloper who lacked the pedigree to join their elite circle. The family's disdain was palpable, manifesting in petty but calculated slights. Pickfair, the legendary estate of Pickford and Fairbanks Sr., was the center of Hollywood society, but the newlyweds weren't invited to the iconic property until 8 months after their wedding. When Crawford finally set foot inside Pickfair, she found herself navigating a minefield of subtle insults and cold receptions. While Crawford eventually managed to charm Douglas Fairbanks Sr., her relationship with Pickford remained icy. If Joan was ever left alone with her formidable mother-in-law, Pickford would retreat to her private quarters, pointedly ignoring her daughter-in-law. Their animosity became one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets, adding fuel to Crawford's already fiery reputation. Yet Joan wasn't one to be deterred by disapproval, or by anything for that matter. Her hunger for stardom was insatiable, and her obsessive drive to succeed often bordered on the extreme. Determined to shed her southwestern accent, she spent hours reading books and magazines aloud to herself, meticulously practicing her pronunciation. She would repeat words over and over until they sounded polished enough for Hollywood's high standards. This relentless self-discipline didn't just smooth out her speech, it transformed her into one of the most sophisticated stars of her era. By the late 1920s and early 1930s, as silent films gave way to talkies, many stars struggled to adapt to the new era, but not Joan. She seized the moment, reinventing herself with precision and flair. By 1932, she had become the third most profitable star in Hollywood, cementing her place in cinema history with a string of hit films. Yet just as her career reached dazzling new heights, her personal life descended into chaos. Joan's marriage to Douglas Fairbanks Jr., already strained by jealousy and ambition, began to crack under the weight of their mutual infidelities. For Joan, her career always came first, but that didn't stop her from igniting a fiery affair with rising Hollywood heartthrob Clark Gable. Meanwhile, Fairbanks Jr. wasn't exactly a saint himself. His unrequited pursuit of Katharine Hepburn and a string of dalliances ensured their relationship had nowhere to go but down. What set Joan and Clark apart from the usual Hollywood scandals was their brazen disregard for discretion. Their affair was an open secret, but their boldest display of infidelity shocked even their closest friends. One night, their mutual friend Adela Rogers St. John's found herself witnessing an unforgettable scene. While out with Joan, Clark, and their respective spouses, St. John's stumbled upon Joan and Clark tangled together behind a bandstand. Clark, the epitome of Hollywood masculinity, and Joan, the embodiment of bold sensuality, were locked in an embrace so intense it left little to the imagination. As St. John's later described, Crawford had her legs wrapped around him in a position that only a supple dancer like Joan could assume. The sheer audacity of the moment was jaw-dropping, but Joan's reaction took the scandal to another level. When Joan realized they'd been caught, she didn't recoil in embarrassment or offer a hurried apology. Instead, with a dazzling smile, she greeted St. John's as if nothing were amiss, exclaiming, "Adela, darling." It was a moment of bold defiance, but Joan wasn't done yet. The very next day, Joan sent St. John's a bouquet of flowers, accompanied by a cheeky note that read, "I bet you were thrilled watching." It was a move that perfectly encapsulated Crawford's fearless approach to life, unbothered by convention, unapologetic about her choices, and always determined to take control of the narrative. Her reputation for unbounded sensuality became the stuff of Hollywood legend, and some of the stories surrounding her were as bizarre as they were scandalous. One of the most infamous tales involved her relationship with teenage star Jackie Cooper. Crawford, then in her 30s, allegedly seduced the young actor, and Cooper later recounted the strange rituals she insisted on. "She would bathe me, powder me, cologne me," he revealed, adding that she would repeat the entire process again. It was an unusual display of dominance and control, adding another layer to Crawford's enigmatic allure. But Crawford's eccentricities extended far beyond her bedroom. Her marriage to Douglas Fairbanks Jr. had long been plagued by tension and jealousy, and their fights were legendary. According to Crawford, Fairbanks was constantly suspicious of her relationships, including her friendships, which led to loud, heated arguments that often carried on late into the night. By 1933, their once glamorous union had crumbled under the weight of their differences, and Crawford filed for divorce, citing grievous mental cruelty. The split marked the end of a tumultuous chapter, but for Crawford, it was only the beginning of more drama. Crawford didn't dwell in the shadows for long. Instead, she stepped into the spotlight as a bona fide fashion icon. Known for her signature style, she popularized the bold, structured look of pronounced shoulder pads. Her outfits embodied power and freedom, presenting a modern silhouette that redefined femininity in Hollywood. Soon, every starlet in Tinseltown was copying her trend-setting fashion, cementing Crawford's status as more than just an actress. She was a cultural force. Her career and personal life often intertwined, and that was especially true after her divorce from Fairbanks. In 1933, Crawford starred in Dancing Lady, a film that paired her with two leading men, her old flame, Clark Gable, and Franchot Tone, a dashing newcomer who would soon become her next great love. Despite her initial hesitations, fearing it was too soon for another romance, Crawford fell for Tone's charm. Their whirlwind courtship culminated in marriage in 1935, and for a brief time it seemed like Crawford might have found lasting happiness. After her tumultuous marriage to Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Crawford tied the knot with Franchot Tone, an actor with undeniable talent but far different aspirations from her own. Crawford, ever the perfectionist, poured her energy into transforming Tone into a leading man. She encouraged him to embrace the spotlight and worked tirelessly to bolster his career. But her relentless drive often wore her out, especially when Tony resisted her efforts, preferring to chart his own quieter path. Their mismatched priorities laid the foundation for cracks in their relationship, but the real heartbreak was yet to come. Behind closed doors, Crawford and Tone shared a deeper pain that few outside their inner circle knew about. Crawford longed to become a mother, viewing children as the one missing piece in her carefully constructed life. However, her dreams of a family were met with devastating tragedy. The couple tried twice to have children, but both pregnancies ended in miscarriages. These losses left Crawford physically drained and emotionally shattered, a stark contrast to her strong, commanding presence on screen. Joan Crawford's life during the late 1930s and early 1940s was nothing short of a nightmare, a whirlwind of personal tragedies, public scandals, and relentless reinvention. Her marriage to Franchot Tone, once a beacon of hope, had deteriorated into something dark and dangerous. Overwhelmed by grief from their miscarriages and frustrated with his career, Tone turned to alcohol. His drinking not only strained their already fragile relationship, but led to something far worse. In moments of anger, Tone became physically abusive, reigniting the trauma Crawford had endured in her youth. For a woman as fiercely independent as Crawford, this was a line she couldn't tolerate. In 1939, she made the courageous decision to leave him, filing for divorce and reclaiming her life. In May 1938, an infamous article labeled her box office poison, claiming her once lustrous star power no longer justified her hefty salary. For a woman who had spent her life chasing adoration and fame, the label was a brutal wake-up call. Crawford's response was as complex as the woman herself, equal parts defiance and desperation. By 1940, Crawford's world was a mix of triumph and turbulence. Acting on her long-held desire to become a mother, she adopted a baby girl through a Las Vegas agency. Her excitement, however, was tinged with a curious narcissism. She initially named the child Joan. Perhaps realizing the self-indulgence of this choice, she quickly renamed her Christina. Amid the joy of motherhood, Crawford made another bold but impulsive decision in 1942, marrying actor Philip Terry after a brief 6-month courtship. Eager to create the family she had always dreamed of, the couple adopted a baby boy named Christopher. But this chapter of happiness was tragically short-lived. The boy's biological mother reclaimed him not long after, plunging Crawford into yet another devastating loss. After the devastating loss of her son Christopher, reclaimed by his birth mother, Crawford attempted to rebuild her family with actor Philip Terry. The couple adopted another boy, whom they named Philip Terry Jr., seemingly trying to piece together the happy home Crawford had always longed for. But the cracks in her marriage to Terry only deepened, and by 1946, the relationship ended in divorce. Crawford's response to the breakup was as dramatic as her screen roles. She renamed Philip Terry Jr. to Christopher Crawford. The decision seemed less like a fresh start and more like a pointed act of defiance. Some speculated it was a way of erasing any reminder of her failed marriage. But in true Crawford fashion, she forged ahead, determined to keep control of her narrative, even if it raised eyebrows. Her personal life might have been tumultuous, but her career was about to experience one of its most remarkable moments. In 1945, Crawford campaigned relentlessly for the title role in Mildred Pierce, a script that had the potential to reignite her waning star power. However, director Michael Curtis was far from a fan. "She comes over here with her hi-hat airs and her goddamn shoulder pads," he famously ranted to studio executives. "Why should I waste my time directing a has-been?" Crawford, however, was not one to back down from a challenge, and the studio overruled Curtis, casting her in the part. Tensions between Crawford and Curtis ran high throughout production, spilling over into bizarre and explosive moments. Curtis's disdain for Crawford's signature look reached a fever pitch when he stormed into one of her costume fittings. Convinced she was secretly wearing shoulder pads, a style he loathed, he tore at her neckline in frustration, only to find that the dramatic silhouette was simply a result of Crawford's natural posture and wardrobe, and succeed she did. Mildred Pierce became a critical and commercial sensation, reestablishing Crawford as one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Her performance as a fiercely independent mother navigating betrayal and ambition resonated with audiences and earned her the first Academy Award of her career, Best Actress at the 1946 Oscars. It was the ultimate validation for Crawford, proving that she was anything but a has-been. Yet in true Crawford fashion, her Oscar night was far from ordinary. Despite her monumental win, Crawford wasn't there to accept the award in person. Instead, she feigned illness and stayed home, reportedly too anxious about losing to face the ceremony. When the news came that she'd won, a photographer was invited into her bedroom, where Crawford, draped in luxurious silk sheets, posed triumphantly with her golden statue. In 1946, Crawford had convinced herself that Ingrid Bergman would take home the Best Actress award for The Bells of St. Mary's, leaving her feeling vulnerable despite her powerhouse performance in Mildred Pierce. So instead of attending the ceremony, she stayed home, citing illness. But when the unexpected news came that she had won, Crawford didn't miss a beat. Calling her makeup team in the middle of the night, she staged an impromptu photo shoot in her bed, draped in glamorous silk sheets and holding her newly won Oscar. The next morning, the photos dominated headlines, presenting an image of triumph and sophistication. It was a move that not only cemented her comeback, but also showcased her knack for turning anxiety into opportunity. Joan Crawford was officially back on top. But, as Hollywood often proves, the higher the climb, the harder the fall. By 1947, Crawford's personal life was making waves yet again. She decided to expand her family, adopting 2 more children, Cindy and Kathy. However, her choice of agency for these adoptions would later cast a dark shadow over her maternal legacy. Crawford used the Tennessee Children's Home Society, an organization that would eventually be exposed as a front for child trafficking. Led by the notorious Georgia Tann, the agency exploited vulnerable families, stealing children and selling them to wealthy clients under the guise of legal adoption. While Crawford may not have known the full extent of the agency's operations, her involvement added a chilling layer to her carefully crafted public image as a doting mother. And then there was Johnny Guitar. In 1954, Crawford starred in the Western alongside Mercedes McCambridge, but the set quickly turned into a battleground. The tension between the two actresses was palpable, and it didn't take long for the feud to escalate into full-blown animosity. Part of the problem? Crawford had reportedly slept with McCambridge's husband years earlier, a scandal that McCambridge clearly hadn't forgotten. Crawford, ever the diva, wasn't content to simply outact her co-star. She twisted the knife further by playing mind games on set, reportedly hiding McCambridge's costumes and mocking her openly. Their feud became the stuff of Hollywood legend, with both actresses delivering fiery performances fueled by their real-life hatred for one another. One of her most infamous feuds played out during the production of Johnny Guitar, 1954, where she and co-star Mercedes McCambridge clashed in ways that made headlines. Their mutual loathing hit a peak when Crawford, reportedly drunk and enraged, threw McCambridge's clothes onto a nearby highway, leaving them to be run over by passing cars. McCambridge didn't hold back when describing Crawford, calling her a mean, tipsy, powerful, rotten egg lady. But Crawford wasn't one to take insults lying down. She retorted with cutting wit, saying, "I have 4 children." If Crawford's feud with McCambridge was dramatic, her rivalry with Bette Davis was nothing short of legendary. By the 1960s, Crawford's competitive streak and Davis's no-nonsense attitude collided spectacularly during the making of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The psychological thriller paired 2 screen legends with a history of animosity, and their icy relationship quickly escalated into open warfare. While the cameras rolled, both actresses managed to remain professional, delivering riveting performances that electrified audiences. But as soon as the cameras stopped, the gloves came off. Promotion for the film turned into a battleground when Crawford, according to Davis, refused to share the stage, leaving her co-star high and dry. It was the opening shot in a bitter and public feud that would become the stuff of Hollywood legend. The verbal barbs flew fast and furious, with neither actress pulling their punches. Davis famously quipped, "Joan Crawford slept with every male star at MGM except Lassie." But Crawford, ever the queen of cutting comebacks, hit where it hurt most. "Bette and I work differently," she said. "Bette screams and I knit." While she screamed, I knitted a scarf that stretched clear to Malibu. Joan Crawford's rivalry with Bette Davis wasn't just a feud. It was a masterclass in pettiness, cunning, and pure Hollywood drama. Their mutual disdain had simmered for decades, but even in its early stages, Crawford knew how to deliver a devastatingly subtle blow. At the 1936 Oscars, when both actresses were still rising stars, Bette Davis made a critical misstep. She arrived in a dress so informal and uninspired that it was practically a scandal. Fellow attendees whispered about the frock's audacity, but Joan Crawford took things a step further. With her signature catty charm, she approached Davis, flashed her brightest grin, and delivered the ultimate backhanded compliment. "Dear Bette, what a lovely frock." Fast forward to 1963, and that simmering tension boiled over in spectacular fashion. The Oscars that year were set to celebrate the haunting psychological thriller, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. But for Joan, the night was already tinged with bitterness. Despite the film's success and her own electrifying performance, Crawford was snubbed for a Best Actress nomination, while Davis secured a nod for her role as the deranged Jane Hudson. The insult cut deep, but Crawford wasn't about to let Davis have the spotlight uncontested. Instead of sulking in defeat, Joan devised a plan so ingenious it could only have come from the mind of a true diva. She reached out to every other nominee in the Best Actress category, all of whom were based on the East Coast, and graciously offered to accept the Oscar on their behalf if they couldn't attend. Flattered by Crawford's generosity and convenience, they all agreed, unknowingly becoming pawns in her plot for revenge. When Oscar night arrived, Crawford's scheme unfolded with flawless precision. The coveted Best Actress statue went to Anne Bancroft for her unforgettable performance in The Miracle Worker, but Bancroft, as planned, wasn't present to claim the award. That's when Joan seized her moment. Dressed in a shimmering gown that screamed triumph, Crawford waltzed onto the stage, accepted the Oscar with poise, and soaked in the applause, right in front of Bette Davis, who sat seething in the audience. It was a perfectly executed act of vengeance, and Crawford savored every second. Among her most infamous rivalries was the one with Bette Davis, and according to Davis, it all boiled down to one man, Franchot Tone. Both women were smitten with the debonair actor, but while Davis nursed a genuine affection for him, Crawford played her cards ruthlessly. She pursued Tone with calculated charm, ultimately winning his heart and leaving Davis seething. Even decades later, Davis admitted she did it coldly, deliberately, and with complete ruthlessness. I have never forgiven her for that and never will. By the 1950s, Crawford had set her sights on a new kind of leading man, Alfred Steele, the president of Pepsi-Cola. Their whirlwind romance led to marriage in 1955, cementing Crawford's status not just as a film star, but as a corporate power player. Yet their union was short-lived. Steele passed away from a heart attack just 4 years later, leaving Crawford to navigate her new role as a widow and an unexpected heiress. Pepsi's board of directors, eager to distance themselves from Steele's glamorous but polarizing wife, tried to push her out of the company. But Joan was not one to back down. In a move as cunning as any of her on-screen performances, she turned to famed gossip columnist Luella Parsons and threatened to expose the board's plans. The threat worked. Pepsi not only relented but appointed Crawford to its board of directors. Once again, Joan had proven that whatever she wanted, she would get, no matter the odds. She made sure Pepsi vending machines were present on every film set she worked on, and she famously clashed with director Billy Wilder during the filming of 1, 2, 3. Wilder, whose film was about a Coca-Cola executive, found himself in a heated battle with Crawford when she insisted Pepsi products appear in the background. For Joan, corporate loyalty was as serious as her Hollywood career, and she wasn't above making bizarre demands to ensure Pepsi's presence was felt. But as the 1960s progressed, Crawford's career began to falter. Though she rode the wave of success from Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, her star power started to dim. In 1968, she made a memorable cameo on The Lucy Show, but her struggles with alcohol nearly derailed the production. During rehearsals, Crawford's drinking rendered her unable to remember her lines, leading to talks of replacing her with Gloria Swanson. Yet when it came time to perform, Crawford delivered a stellar performance, a reminder of the brilliance that had made her a legend. Crawford's obsession with cleanliness was nothing short of legendary. She went to extreme lengths to maintain her environment, even hiring a German maid she affectionately called Mamacita. The maid's refusal to use a mop, preferring to scrub floors on her hands and knees, earned her Crawford's trust and a permanent place in Crawford's household. But Joan's meticulousness didn't stop there. Her home was a monument to plastic encasings, from furniture to lampshades and even her shoes. Her interior designer once quipped that her apartment had more objects wrapped in plastic than an A&P meat counter. Yet beneath her polished exterior was a woman grappling with insecurities and personal challenges. In 1968, Crawford pulled one of the most shocking moves of her career. When her daughter Christina fell ill and had to leave her role on the soap opera The Secret Storm, Crawford stepped in as her replacement. While Crawford insisted it was an act of love, others saw it as a calculated move to steal the spotlight. further straining her already rocky relationship with Christina. In her later years, Crawford's struggles with alcohol became public knowledge. Known for carrying a flask of 100 proof spirits and even installing a custom refrigerator in her bathroom for easy access, her drinking eventually led to a gruesome accident in 1974. After slipping and injuring her face, Crawford, now a devout Christian Scientist, decided to quit drinking for good, a decision that came too late to halt her declining health but showed her determination to take control where she could. Critics who dismissed her as too glamorous found themselves on the receiving end of her sharp tongue. When asked about her unattainable beauty, Crawford famously quipped, "If you want to see the girl next door, go next door." Even in her final years, when a single photograph from a party made her feel insecure about her appearance, Crawford took drastic action. She withdrew from public life entirely, becoming a recluse for 3 years. Her reason? If that's how I look, then they won't see me anymore. While the world knew her as Joan Crawford, she intended it to be pronounced Joanne. Privately, she often went by her childhood nickname Billy with those closest to her. But perhaps what set Crawford apart most was her dedication to her fans and colleagues. She responded personally to every fan letter she received, typing replies on blue paper and autographing each one. On set, she made a point of learning every crew member's name, stating, "It's important to remember people. I pride myself on doing that." One of the most whispered about rumors surrounding Crawford's early years involved an alleged stag film she reportedly starred in before her Hollywood ascent. Though Crawford vehemently denied its existence, her first husband, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., claimed otherwise. In his autobiography, Fairbanks admitted that Crawford once tearfully confessed the truth to him. "I tried to get as many details from her as possible," he wrote, "but I only got tears. The supposed film has never resurfaced, leading many to believe that a studio may have destroyed the footage to protect their rising star." By the time she was a Hollywood icon, Crawford's bold and unfiltered nature had become legendary, particularly when it came to her co-stars. On the set of Daisy Kenyon in 1947, Crawford developed an intense infatuation with her co-star, Henry Fonda. True to form, she didn't hold back in expressing her feelings. She arranged for the costume department to create a custom red sequin jockstrap, which she presented to Fonda in a gift box. The gift alone would have been enough to leave anyone speechless. But Crawford wasn't finished. Fonda, known for his reserved and stoic demeanor, initially ignored Crawford's over-the-top gesture. But during a scene where he carried her up a flight of stairs, Crawford leaned in and whispered an invitation that nearly made Fonda drop her. "Model the underwear for me in private," she said. Fonda later recounted the moment, saying, "When she whispered the invitation, I nearly dropped her." Crawford's unapologetic boldness was equal parts shocking and captivating, ensuring her co-stars would never forget her. However, Crawford's quirks weren't confined to public displays. In his memoirs, actor Kirk Douglas recounted a romantic encounter with Crawford that took a bizarre turn. During an intimate moment, Crawford leaned in and whispered an unexpected compliment. "You're so clean. It's wonderful that you shaved your armpits when you made Champion." Douglas described the remark as a real conversation stopper, revealing a glimpse of Crawford's obsessive fixation on cleanliness, even in the most private settings. Joan Crawford's life was as dramatic off-screen as it was on. While her career cemented her status as a Hollywood legend, her personal struggles and controversies left a complicated legacy that continues to fascinate generations. Whether admired for her talent or questioned for her choices, Joan Crawford remains a figure of intrigue and inspiration. If you enjoyed this deep dive into her life, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories from the golden age of Hollywood. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.